Hello, hello, hello. Uh,
Hey,
welcome. Badao, I'm curious to hear what is Kavana about and how you started. It's like, what's the origin story, how this ties to what you were doing earlier, and what you are trying now.
so we're basically three founders. We spent most of our working or most of our professional career in storytelling uh, or selling educational courses. Both Kunal and Shubham, who are my co-founders, used to uh, we all three of us met at Kuku FM, where we spent most of our time. Prior to Kuku FM, both Kunal and Shubham were working in different places. Kunal primarily in Topper. I was doing my MBA. I directly joined Kavana after my Coco FM after my MBA. I think we spent close to more than 6 years individually in Coco. Primarily, first trying to sell non-fiction as a content format, and then trying to sell entertainment as a content format. The last stints that all of us had, Kunal was leading. Kunal was head of growth for the audio business. I introduced Microrama as a format in India, even though it was already very popular globally. Nobody was trying to do it in India. So I was leading the revenue and growth charter for Kuku TV, which was my large stint in Kuku FM, uh, the Kuku group. Shub kind of had multiple roles within Kuku, mostly all around tech. But in the end, he was leading infrastructure and backend engineering at Kuku. All three of us decided we wanted to build something, and our journey started by trying to play around with like LLMs and AI systems. Back then, agents, like this is about a year and a half ago, uh, agents weren't really a big thing. You had LLMs, people used to change LLMs to do a bunch of things. We were trying to build an Indian version of the Riz app, um, that we felt wouldn't be like a like a large company that kind of that was not our intent. Then we set out to build try it on for either in an app format or in a hardware format. So what we were thinking was we would go out and sell this to kind of stores like Levi's, where people don't have to go in the changing rooms all the time and they can just look at themselves in amongst the catalog. We're very grateful that we did not take that up, because it seems like if we had gone down that route, it would have been a dead end very soon. That's that is kind of the scare with working in AI, right? That is when we started working on chat-based interfaces, and Kavana kind of started taking up shape. We realized that chatting as a format is sticky. We all spend a large chunk of our time on conversational platforms. If it's work, it's Slack. If it's not work, it's WhatsApp. We felt this is a good medium, just that no one has used this medium for storytelling till date. Everyone has used it for communication. We started building talk to a character and build a story. So we kind of the vision of talking to a character, and we took it one step ahead. Ki, yaar, let's build a story whilst you're talking with a character. And the character essentially is just the face of it. There's an agent in the background that does both narration, everything, right? It builds the story. So the vision, Kamana's vision is that everything in the world is right now boring, right? Even if you look at reels, you would scroll 10 reels before you find that one good one that you can share with your friends. That was not the case in the past, right? I used to get good reels. If I have to put it down in number words. But the idea is that as things start getting boring, as volume of content starts growing a lot, hyper personalized content will take over, and that is the hypothesis we're working after.
If I were to like distill it to two things, right? So one is chat as a way to tell stories. We've always
Yep.
had stories in video, which is always there. Like I think you called out micro drama, so that's always been there, like a 2 minute to 3 minute episode, 10 minutes episodes. YouTube Shorts are like YouTube short stories was a thing even back in like 2018, 17. Like, they used to be very popular 10-minute short stories. And it's like, so I think the first is like, can we do this on text? I think that's a nice differentiation because you don't depend on the LLM directly and you don't care if the LLMs get better. If they get better, it's a
Exactly.
tailwind for you. It helps you. It doesn't hurt you, and you're not competing on technology. Unlike the try-on idea.
Yes. If you get like good at storytelling in the textual format, going from text to video is an add-on, but the base of all storytelling has always been text, and that is why text. That's another reason why text.
Because the volume which sorry, not volume and variety both for stories in text is much larger than all other formats. Is that?
No, no, no. Very simply, right? Before a movie gets shot, the script is written, right?
Mm,
The key insight is that you need a written text to produce something in video. And that is also true for your video LLMs, right?
mm,
Your video models.
yep.
If you look at, if you don't have good text, if you don't have good material, you will never be
Hmm.
able to get good video out of it. That is also a reason why we started with text and we don't directly want to jump onto video.
Got it. That makes sense. Basically, you see that text is a very, very important intermediate, and or I think intermediate is the wrong way to put it. It's a very important foundation, and then everything else builds from there, whether that is video or other forms of
Exactly.
stories.
Exactly.
Okay. And the second was on the saturation versus hyper personalization, right? Like I spend so much time
Yeah.
on reels that I am saturated with it. So hence, uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to like get this a little more deeper. Like, what are the early challenges slash problems? Why we started working together? What brought us together?
Sure. So, neither of the three of us, right? None of us had actually ever worked with agents, right? Or models, right? AI models, right? We didn't know how product or engineering would look like in such a scenario, right? Distribution would still remain kind of similar, but product and engineering were going to be like wildly different, right? Um, when we started out, we were kind of directly using standard OpenAI LLM APIs, and we were kind of generating content, um, like single API call generations, right? That's usually your talk to a character setups. We very quickly realized that if it's going to take a week to integrate a new LLM, integrate one new model to test, it is going to be very difficult. And then we also realized that like we needed hand holding to kind of kick off the thinking engine, right? We very quickly realized that we may not be very good at uh, thinking creative. We may not be very good at creative thinking when it comes to 0 to 1 with LLMs because we did not have an instinct to think in that direction. But once we had even a zeroth version or an MVP of something that started working, then we realized that we are very good at building on top of that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that that I can endorse wholeheartedly. That if we can show it to you, then you can get it working. We
exactly.
just need to
So
unlock something, and then you can like get it in your context very quickly.
exactly. That is the sole reason why we kind of started working together, why we wanted a partner to kind of build it with.
Okay. Some of the early, I mean, building on like the part which you called out, which is that if you integrate one LLM at a time, you just cannot do fast enough experimentation on just the model component. And there's like a lot more to experiment beyond the model as well.
Yeah.
The other knobs and levers. Two of the early components which we worked were on infrastructure, like making sure that that is set up. Which is one is the gateway piece. We rolled out Light LLM and then Open Router, which gives us access to a much larger pool of LLMs. You want to like add to that?
Yes, of course. I think I think two things happened. One was that when we started, there was these two labs that were doing good stuff. One was OpenAI. And this is back when we started, right? Which is about a year and a half, actually a
Yeah,
year back, right?
yearish. हाँ.
Yeah, not even actually a full year, but एक साल पहले तक just one LLM provider, OpenAI, leading everything. ठीक है? No one else was even close. The second provider that was trying to do good things or kind of making headwinds was Llama, right?
Hmm.
Now everyone has forgotten Llama for some reason, I don't know. But it was just two LLMs. So the problem was easy. And then we suddenly saw that in 6 months, there were 10 other model providers that were giving 30 other models, three versions of each of their model. And then the newer versions were coming out every 3 months. Now you really need, and actually the other thing we realized was you know, even the harnessing was changing, right? To give you an example, even OpenAI shifted from chat completions to
Function
responses,
to responses, yes.
right? And everybody followed suit, right? The moment everybody started shifting to an agentic framework, a lot of things started to change, right? So we really needed someone to we kind of from the first principles perspective, we needed someone to just write all that code for us, right? We never thought something like Light LLM could exist, right? You introduced us to Light LLM, and we were very, very skeptical at first, right? Fundamentally, because we are against tying ourselves into any framework that is not fully open source and or not fully private. Some sits somewhere in the middle. Light LLM sits somewhere in the middle. It is paid also and
Yes,
free also, right?
yes.
We were very skeptical, still are, but it works for us, so we are happy. Light LLM solved a bunch of things, right? One was model experimentation, right? You could simply try out 10 experiments. You could, if you have a large enough base, you could try out 3 experiments a week, and you can figure out, right, what gives you good output. I think the second big piece that Light LLM unlocked was um, traditionally, if you look at any company that is building in the AI space, right? They would all look at, let's run evals and let's use the biggest available model to run evals. If you look at this bench called EQ bench, it's a bench that people use to benchmark themselves on how good they are in storytelling or emotional quotient benches. Full form is what it's called. Um, the model that they use is O3 Mini, right? Which is a still OpenAI model, right? We realized that in that eval infrastructure, that is not the best model to use when you're testing out how good storytelling people are doing, right? I think Light LM unlocked that for us. And I wouldn't say कि हम ये कर नहीं पाते अगर Light LM नहीं होता तो, but it's just that it made life very easy for everybody in the org to test it out.
Hmm.
That unlocks a lot of value.
Hmm. And you use the prompt playground from Light LLM and not Langfuse or your own to
So
try these things
we
out.
didn't uh, so we didn't use Light LLM for anything apart from our production services or kind of the eval infrastructure. Um, for our prompt playgrounds, we built something of our own, but we very quickly realized that all V1s can be quickly prototyped in both Light LLM and Langfuse. We go back and forth. Different people have different comforts, but both
Preferences.
of them are both of them are useful.
Okay. Since we have already mentioned Langfuse, and we did install that, including fairly tricky things on retention policies, did that help your growth team find out, okay, what are the levers, experimentation? What does that mean? Like basically observability and visibility क्या चाहिए हो रहा है chat में.
Absolutely. I would say that Langfuse unlocked what a product manager would do in an AI world. That is what it made clear to us, right? If you look at what a product manager does in a traditional organization today, uh, the on a task list, if you see, there would be sometimes it would be managing a team of engineers and Jira tickets, etc., etc., or like running a sprint, right? The other things that
Mhm.
a product manager would do sit with design, do some user research, kind of ideate, manage a metric, things around that, right? But
Mhm.
amongst all of this, the smallest bit or the most important bit is the app should work as
Mhm.
intended in control.
Mhm.
It's simple, right? It should work as intended and it should be in our control as to how it is working. If a product manager does not have that visibility, he can never take, if there is no determinism, okay, then it is wild, wild west. Then nobody can build on top of it. Line to unlock that for us.
Mhm. I also saw that you used scorers for in Langfuse. What was that experience like?
So we were previously on Brain Trust, and we were using Brain Trust for very simple experiments, right? I have 300 inputs and I want to use OpenAI API to run an experiment to get output of these 300 inputs, right? With a fixed prompt. And I wanted to improve my prompt. This was the standard setup. Once I realized that I can build a runtime eval and gain control of when something is going bad at runtime, put an alerting on top of it. That is when I realized I have unlocked real value. So we started using
Mm.
scorers for different things, right? For example, um, we had we had some problems with users kind of trying to break our prompts. Prompt injection was an issue. NSFW was an issue. We also realized that uh, another problem was we wanted to given that chat volume started to increase, we wanted to identify which chats are the most interesting ones, right? Where is it that the user is doing a certain action that is going to make it interesting, and you wanted to identify that. So that is where we used scorers. Very, very relevant whenever, especially when you want to control what percentage of volume will I run it on, and usefulness of that scorer bit was to catch things in live production and not wait for a week for an analyst to pull it out.
Mm. Do you still continue to use scorers in this active monitoring way?
Uh, no, we realized that when the scale increases, you need a different infrastructure to kind of support you. And that is when we realized that, and that is when we build our own data pipelines. Right? So we
Mm.
don't use scorers, but we do have something that is uh, much, much better, more real time uh, than even a scorer. LangFuse scorers are still slower. They still
They're
have
also run after the response, so there's always like a post hook. Huh?
exactly right. They're always a post hook, right? We realize that scorers cannot be a pre hook. Number one. Number two, they're still slower. Number three, um, there is a certain limitation as to what you can get a score on. Right?
Ah, yes.
You can't really make a scorer score categorically. Right? You can give it
Mm.
a 0, 1, you can give it a certain set of values. But if you really want it to give you a bunch of outputs, right? Give it a category, give it a score, give it a comment, and then tell me something, right? What next? That is also a scorer, a judge LLM, but
Mm.
it work on the current language infra.
Mm. Got it. Basically, that's like they've scoped it narrowly. It will only run on bot responses, and it will only run as a post hook, and it will only run fixed singleton judges. Uh,
And it
and
only run on the top level of a trace, not on
oh
span.
yes, yes, that is a different challenge altogether.
Yeah.
Which I hate as well. So I share your criticism on that design choice. Uh, since you already mentioned you actually mentioned quite a few things in terms of lang use. Do you want to expand on how these eval systems tied to your actual end user metrics like retention, engagement, acquisition, like anything?
Yes, sure. But actually, I'm gonna disappoint you on this one because I realized that if there was a good eval for
Mm,
what we were trying to do, then
mm.
um, Mr. Dario Amode, the CEO of Anthropic, wouldn't say that he's unsure of whether he can do a great job of novel writing in his very
Ah,
recent interview, right? Simply
yeah.
because it is unverifiable, right? So you
Mm,
can have a good eval to give you a directional answer, but there is no
mhm.
fixed eval when it comes to content, or at least we haven't been able to figure it out. We're still on the hunt for that.
I think that's a very good way to phrase it, that it's not verifiable. Yeah. Okay. Um, let's change tracks here. Two things which we built. One of those is adjacent to the data pipelines, which you also called out NSFW. Let's take that up second, and let's talk about the fact that since you are a consumer app, one of the things which we wanted to look at is what levers can we use, can we move to improve cost,
Yeah.
and we looked at compacting AKA memory in the Kavana context. You want to like tell us a little bit about what was the change in cost? What does it broadly look like? in terms of design, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
So we got it. So we're not a traditional chatbot system. The interface is chat, but the experience is not chat. The experience is storytelling, right? So you need a lot of context, right? So to give you an example, in a thriller movie, when you watch a thriller movie and you watch the first episode of a 10-part series, usually the killer is always in right in front of your eyes and you see him in the first episode. But it's only in the 10th episode that it is revealed. So you need the context of the entire 10 episodes for an agent to capture it and deliver that value to you. But it's not humanly possible, or at least humanly be chodo, right? It's not possible from a cost perspective or a context length perspective to capture that, right? That is where we wanted to start looking at saving some cost in terms of context engineering. And we used and the interesting thing is we used a lot of the available systems out there. We experimented with a lot of the state-of-the-art systems that are available for chat-based applications. Like I wouldn't want to name a few, but like we experimented with every available tool out there, right? What we
I
realized
mean,
was
you
our use
can name it.
very
It's
different.
engineering. It's fine.
हाँ मतलब I'm just trying to say that our use case is
Uh,
very unique. Our use case is that we need
yep,
to capture more context than simply user memories, right? We tried RAG systems. They just don't work. It's just impossible to make them work in our context because you need that context. It's impossible to not keep that context, right? You cannot rely on top three matches, top two matches, uh, and you pass them on, or however you structure memory, right? It's impossible.
yep. I'll add a little more technical flavor to this. One of the reasons why Kavana's compacting was slightly like I had to rethink that bit was typically how you define similarity is like what did the text say. That is not the case when you're doing stories because if there is a plot change of some sort, like a twist, uh, that will not have similarity with the preceding text, but will have similarity with what is happening that point onwards. But
Yeah.
the point, what you want to do is be able to find it based on the previous one, which means you're effectively changing the search criteria. That is
Yeah.
why all I was like, okay, this RAG system or anything which depends on search, whether that search is graph, vector, keyword, anything, does not work based on this like this broad idea that your story you can only use everything which has happened so far to do any kind of search.
Yeah.
That is why we only looked at compacting as like the first solution and the first attempt.
We actually did something very weird. We actually also looked at utilizing least matches when we were
Mm,
using a RAG system. So
mm,
you have similarity scores in RAG systems, right? And you
yeah.
pick the top matches, right?
Mm,
We were like, ki, how would you introduce a twist in a story if you're only picking up the most matched items, right? You have to
yeah.
look
The
at
chaos
least matching
engineering.
items, right? Chaos
Uh,
engineering, exactly.
uh, how did that go? Did that work well?
No, it doesn't work. It is not that simple. If it was that simple, I mean, we wouldn't have worked with you.
Yes. If it helps, this is also an unsolved problem in e-commerce search, and that is why and Instagram feeds, if that helps, like all sort of reels feeds. Largely because you always need to have a explore exploit trade-off, right? So you need to always
Yeah.
keep trying new things. Now, how you select the new is more art than science, although we like to think that it's more science.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, no, it is not science. It is art. It's
yeah,
a hard
so
pill to swallow, but yes, it is art.
yes, like what to try in that explore budget is like nobody has a good right away answer, especially there. And we have like what 25 years of e-com experience at this point, and I'm saying even there we still have like experiments which don't work.
Yep.
Okay, I'll recap this on memory and compacting basically. So you called out that okay, there was one big win from that was the cost. Is that correct?
Yep.
40%. Ah, okay.
Roughly 40%.
Uh, did that change how users responded to characters? Like on how like were the users happier? Were like हाँ ठीक है याद रह रहा है.
So basically, our guardrail was engagement shouldn't dip, but our cost should get saved. right?
Hmm.
We weren't chasing two bullets, two bodies with the same bullet, right? कि engagement भी बढ़ जाए और cost भी कम हो जाए, right? तो
Hmm.
we kept it very simple, right? Just reduce cost, do
And
better
will not.
context engineering. Yeah, it
Ah,
shouldn't harm engagement, right? So it didn't. So we were happy to kind of, we were happy with the outcome.
got it. And we still use a version of that in production, right?
Yeah.
And qualitatively, did you see any change in how users interact with the system? Like you read
Really?
like a lot of chats. Okay.
Yeah, not really.
So that is also counterintuitive, right? Usually we expect that if you do compacting, users get more annoyed. So we did not see a retention hit which was hurtful. Like it did not kill it.
Yeah.
Okay. The second part, which is just into the scoring, which I had mentioned earlier, was the NSFW detection system. And the typical answer for this has always been use the moderation API. Maybe you want to expand why the requirements were different and how your that and because your requirements were different, the design of this also looks very different. It's not like classic classifier basically.
Yes. So very simple, right? We're a content platform. Content platforms depict something, depict fictional items. So our rules are slightly different, right? For us, the policy is we want to give users an experience that they're happy to share with their family. So the guardrails are not very tight. So if you look at some of the open source available moderation models, they would simply not let you tune it in a way that this works. Largely because they have been fine-tuned to operate in a certain way, right? And that is the whole value that they give, right? Ki out of the box, all NSFW is blocked here, right? That is not what we wanted. We wanted to fine-tune in a way that this is something creative people are creating. They will take things to a point that would involve all forms of human emotions, right? That also includes murder, that includes violence, that includes gore, that includes romance, that includes kissing, right? And that is okay. But it should be something that people can take back to their kids and show them, or their family, or kids can take it to their family, their parents, and show them that they've created something, something nice. They should be proud that I've created a story I never thought I could write. So our policy requirement what was very different. That is why out of the box moderation APIs did not simply wasn't simply a plug and play system. Even though versions of moderation APIs give you much more control, it is still lagging on a lot of factors. And when one of the big factors is our language. You look at most moderation APIs, they're only fine-tuned on English text or maybe a few foreign language text, but especially not on how Indians approach language, right? We don't have one language. We always use two languages mixed together to talk, right? So that is not available, right? And hence we wanted to build something of our own and also not wait for other people to build it out, right? We wanted to build something of our own because we knew that this would keep changing and we want to own this. So if our policy changes tomorrow, we want to make it stricter, we can do that. We don't rely on other people or more engineering to kind of solve it for us.
Got it. So basically, like the wins which product or the flexibility which product and growth get out of our engineering effort is two things here, right? One is language coverage, English specific, and the second is you can change the system as your policy evolves, and you have direct control over that. You don't have to like coordinate with an outside team, basically. Got it. Um, Before we close, I want to ask things like which we tried, which did not work out. Uh, like the wins didn't translate. Basically, there were experiments which didn't work out. Maybe you can mention. I can add whatever is missing from that
I
list.
think I think I think one of the I've already mentioned one which is using a RAG as a system to get user context, right? Did not work. I think the other thing which we felt was um, you could always use explicit caching. Some of our use case is Gemini, so we wanted to use explicit caching. We realized that e- e- like out of the box implicit caching works great. Uh, it doesn't leave much scope for explicit caching to work. We did not see a big win with explicit caching, even though we would roll it out in some of our product parts. But I think that is something that really did not work for us. I think we also tried one more thing, which was to try and build out a system that lets um, people who don't know SQL to interact with our data. Uh, and I think we very quickly realized that even though that system works, the harder the harder part is to how do you kind of provide all all database contexts to one system while being compliant, while kind of putting enough safety guardrails so that not everything is available, and yet the entire context is available. We very quickly realized that uh, there's still time before that happens, right? Your MCPs of the world and everything is still available and everything is ready, and yet um, there is a lot to build, uh, a lot of context to provide. And that is something we still kind of failed at. Uh, but I think yeah, this covers most of the things that didn't work for us.
Yeah, I think I'm very happy to say at least that I did not endorse RAG for any of these
Yeah, true.
because I built my reputation doing RAG. So I think I'm happy. I could tell when RAG is not the correct answer. Uh, ठीक है. हाँ, things which you would like to would have done differently. That could be, I think we wanted to discuss, let's say maybe it's prioritization, experiments which we picked, goalposts which we picked, anything on those lines.
I think we did a fairly good job at prioritization, right? We looked at everything problem by problem. We solved the first problem that unlocks our bandwidth. Then we looked at the second problem which unlocks quality of kind of work. Then we looked at another problem which solves kind of gross margin. And then we looked at the final problem which protects us legally, right? I think the prioritization was very well done by us. Uh, I think I wouldn't change much in our prioritization. Maybe if we had more time, we would have given more shots at the agent framework that we we are trying to build internally.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I think your harness is actually pretty bespoke and it's actually pretty custom built for the use case. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is one thing which I had preconceived notions that usually Landgraph or like a pre-built harness wins. But now that I've seen your product mature over last few months, I'm convinced that at least for you, it clearly leans very strongly in favor of having your own custom harness because your team can move that much faster because they can store whatever is the harness doing, like the logic in their heads, and they don't have to learn it. अच्छा वो ऐसे क्यों करता है? Like you don't have to
Yeah.
learn any of those, so you can reason about the entire thing in your head. There is not no secondary documentation to look up. Uh, and and when I was onboarding myself to that code base, initially it felt like a little bit of friction. But as I got more familiar, I also noticed that okay, now I can dry run the entire harness in my head because it's all there. Like there's like a elegance to its simplicity.
Yeah.
So good decisions from Shubh on that.
Definitely. I think all of these decisions were Shubh's, right? I was just there. I was just there as a spectator. Like almost all of these decisions kind of were more from Shubh on how he would want to run the engineering org. Uh, what what sort of levers would he expose to us, and what sort of levers would he want to keep at the engineering level?
Yep. Okay. Uh, we can wrap here. Any parting things? What has it been like to work with me and the team? What parts did you like? What parts did you not like? And you can be honest, गाली दे सकते हो.
I think I think with traditional when you work with a consulting setup, right? I think there are two problems that occur, right? One is speed of execution, right? Most consulting orgs or most consulting companies work on an hourly basis or deliverable basis, and you have certain layers of kind of at least two layers are always present, a hierarchical layers, right? I think working with you guys, we did not feel speed was a challenge. I think it was the other way around, right? You felt our speed was a challenge. And I think the second more important thing that we learned was because you were because you had built this over and over again, and even though the harder part was to convince you that we don't need like a spaceship, a horse cart is
Mm.
just enough for our use case, because it's a simpler use case. The complexity and the creativity is what will guide, what guide it. um, I think your acceptance of it and yet moving faster on it was just great to see. I remember us having a heated conversation on whether we should use harness, not use harness, right? And
Yes.
specifically should use Landgraf, not use Landgraf, right? Everything
Yes.
around, right? And I was convinced that if even after such a heated debate, me and Shubh couldn't convince ourselves to give it a shot,
Mm.
it was not worth a shot, right? Because we are lazy people at the end of the day, right? We would have taken up a week's worth of effort of someone else's time who we were already paying. We would have
Mm.
happily taken, but even we felt that even if they do it, it's going to create problems.
Yeah, yeah. I think you made the right call there. So I stand corrected on that. Yeah. It just took much longer. I had to go through वो एक होता है ना कि like you have to immerse in that system to understand, okay, where is the win of that? Like, why is this better?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But yeah, I mean, all thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, we would not have jumped uh, so fast on our learning curve, uh, especially on building agents. We would have still been a talk to character company. We would not have built our storytelling agents. We would not have kind of moved our visions around to get to something unique. And more importantly, our engineering team wouldn't know uh, what value and speed an Arish adds to the team. Uh, right?
Yes.
All thanks to you guys, right? I wanted to mention Arish because
Yes,
at the end of the
absolutely.
day, at the end of the day, Arish kind of added a lot of value to the entire
नहीं,
process.
very, very high speed. I think just the fact that I can spend all my time thinking about verification and back pressure and things like that and be like, this is how you do this, is because I know that if I detail it enough, RH plus Cloud Code can basically make the entire embedding system up in like 2 weeks. I'll actually call
Yeah.
this out. So I built a very similar system for a very similar use case back in 2019, and it took me 6 months just to put it in context. And very similar volume and throughput if it helps. Uh, so everything, including Kubernetes and everything, it took me 6 months. 6 months, two people doing it full time.
Yeah. I just want to correct one thing. It did not take him 2 weeks. It took him 1 week.
ठीक है, हाँ, but it took another week to hit prod because हाँ, merge and all that.
Oh,
हाँ,
that is our speed.
fair. ठीक है, हाँ, ठीक है. I'll take that.
Yeah.
ठीक है. We'll close here. चलो. Well, we एक second. I'll stop.